Hello, hello.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us here for a Democrat and a Republican walk into a bar at our favorite spot in the Cape, Ollie's Pub. Thanks so much for joining us. I hear I have a new beer coming towards me, a strawberry lemonade sour.
Ooh, that does sound good.
Sounds
I'm usually
good.
not a beer guy, but I may want to try that too. So we'll see.
Cool
Sean,
drinks, cool shows.
have you reached the $10,000 yet? By the way,
We're still very close.
Still very close. So we're going to send you there's going to be a link that we'll be posting up, of course, for their donation page. We're trying to keep all these open over the summer, usually during the summer days, even though you'd think otherwise. That's when the seasonal people go back up, and so we don't really have that much business. So we have a GoFundMe account. They're very close, less than $200 towards their goal. So they are getting close. I'm gonna have to make a donation myself. I actually have some disposable income around. But yes, we need to get them to 10,000. That'll keep them open enough for the summer, and that way, once season rolls around, they'll of course be profitable and making money. These type of things, because of the way our tourism and season works, and unfortunately, our tourism season this year was much less because of Hurricane Ian.
Right.
Businesses depend on that, and unfortunately, a lot of small businesses down here struggle. And Ollie's is a big staple in our community. A lot of people love coming here. It's a safe place for a lot of people to come in Cape Coral. So we want to keep it open. We really appreciate it if you have some loose change lying around. If you can donate to that GoFundMe, get them over that $10,000.
Absolutely. And shout out to all the small businesses across Southwest Florida that are working to make it through. I know a lot of people are still recovering from the hurricane. It does take a long time. I know a lot of people are still jostling with their insurance company. And right. And so do get out to patron our small businesses around town. And for everybody else, it's not like this kind of service-based industry. Stay strong, friends.
Yep.
We know that you're the lifeblood of our economy.
Amen.
And, there are folks that are fighting for you. So,
excellent. So, no, we have Republicans who are supporters of small businesses.
There's Republicans that say,
oh my.
let's say this: we're the champion of micro businesses.
Okay.
Micro businesses are businesses with 20 or less full-time equivalent employees. Because actually, small businesses, if you know, are considered businesses with 500 or less full-time employees. So that's one of the ways that people squirrel around with how they talk about things, because there's a lot of business funding, loans, and things that are available to quote small businesses, but far less for micro businesses.
So definitely Republicans are for micro businesses because we're pro entrepreneurship. Okay. Already we're at it. We have a lot of things stuck. How was your 4th of July, by the way?
Oh boy, let's see.
You had a busy week this week, actually. You and your duck.
That's right. We'll talk about the duck in a minute. So 4th of July was great. It's always a fantastic time to celebrate America and our independence and our freedom, our real freedoms. Sorry, I'm really jazzed. You'll know why in a minute. I spent some time with my in-laws, had a nice barbecue, very Americana. And then my family and I went down to do the fireworks in Centennial Park. So the Fort Myers
fireworks was over at the Cape Coral one, Red, White, and Boom. That's a big one.
That's always fun too.
Big one that happens every year. I got there at around 8. So we had Dylan Scott, who's this country musician, as the headliner. So I got the tail end of his performance. And I was right there, like on the water of the river. So it was the fireworks were right above me. And it was a wonderful fireworks show. Definitely just amazing, very beautiful. And Red, White, and Boom is always just a fun event. It's a major aspect. It's one of the 2 big community events, along with our Festival of Lights during Christmas. Yep. So always wonderful to do that. Yeah, very big. So happy to have gone there again. There was one time I have a story where years ago I was living on Pine Island. I wanted to go to Red, White, and Boom. I biked 4 hours from Pine Island to get there. It was crazy.
Wow.
It was exhausting, but it was a heck of a determination. I was dedicated because it's such a great event, and our city government and our special events. Shout out to our Cape Coral special events team. Wonderful job this year. Wonderful job getting that big name, Dylan Scott, who's, I'm not really a big country music fan, but apparently he's big in country music. A lot of people were enjoying the performance. So very good time all around. Can't wait for next year. Very good experience.
And there's usually vendors and stuff like that. It's a big festival atmosphere. When I was a candidate, I always had a table at Red, White, and Balloon. Boom. Really good time. And I'll even give a shout out to Brian Rist and the folks at Storm Smart, who are usually one of the main sponsors and had been, even though there's a little bit of some controversy with that in Cape Coral's past.
Brian Rist is an interesting figure in Cape Coral's past, but we won't discuss that right now.
No, I had worked with him on homeless issues in the past as well, so I know that he's
a very philanthropic figure now, especially with how big Storm Smart has gotten. He's basically using. I don't think he owns that anymore. I think he's basically using that money, giving it back to the community, like a lot of
the family foundation. I know. But yeah, he's been involved in that in a while. Partisanship aside, he was always a very community focused person.
Which is what we need, regardless of your political affiliation. We need to have a more. We both agree there.
So that was good. The one thing I will say, and this is something that happened to me and my family. Usually the shows are about 25 to 30 minutes. This year, the show was about 13 minutes in Fort Myers. Yep. It was noticeably short. I heard and I saw on some of the community pages, people were talking about the Cape Coral show being short as well. And then people were jostling about it.
I actually left like halfway through because it was like, once there was like enough fireworks. I was like, this is good. I'm going to beat the traffic because I was right there. I was in a position where if I had waited till the end, it would take me like an hour just to get out to Del Prado, So it was a strategic maneuver.
Some folks had mentioned that there had been some price increases because many of the fireworks are produced in China, like all of them. And maybe it was related to tariffs or inflation or whatever. But some people are saying that the price of fireworks were up to twice as much as they had been in previous years. And actually that tracks because it's about half as long. So, and because these are community events, they're budgeted through the city councils. And so they do their budgeting the previous year kind of based on what the costs were then. So it makes sense that if they had budgeted in 2022 for this year's show and the price unexpectedly went higher, that you would get it.
So I think, look, I would rather just be fiscally responsible than have a 30-minute fireworks show.
Goddamn fireworks. Fucking 4th of July.
Where's your American patriotism?
That's right. Fucking blow shit up.
How committed are you to tax breaks versus low spending versus patriotism? It's the real dilemma.
Well, that's what we have. There we go. Anyway. No, it was a great show. I do, I appreciate any of our community events that we have and things that bring us together as Americans.
It is. It was a very good event. Cape Coral has its event, Fort Myers at Centennial Park, Naples, all of these communities. So always wonderful. Hope you guys had a good 4th of July as well. And I want to hear about your weekend. You were having some fun with the Democrats.
That's right. It was the big Democrat jam this weekend. So we had what's called Leadership Blue. This year it was in Miami. It goes around the state from year to year, try to make it somewhat centrally located. So it's often in Tampa or Orlando. So folks from the Panhandle, Jacksonville can get down. But, we wanted to make special focus on Miami, especially our Latino folks in there. So we had a big convention this weekend. Thousands of people were there. It was a good time to connect. Many of the leadership was there. People that includes electeds from Congress and the State House, etc. So it was a lot of fun. So, and as we were talking, I did something special. So one of my roles, and as Sean and I had talked about, this is Sean and Cindy talking in a bar, right?
Yep.
Not officially representing our parties and our other positions, okay?
Yep.
But I do have a position on the Democratic Environmental Caucus. I am the communications chair there. And we really wanted people to know about some of the environmental issues because there's a lot of hot button issues these days, right? People are talking about abortion, they're talking about insurance, they're talking about immigration, blah, blah, blah. But we still think that environment is something that we can actually all care about, that there's a lot of bipartisan.
Yeah, there is. This is
opportunities,
actually, I
right?
100% agree with you on this. This goes back to Teddy Roosevelt and conservation. I think you have a lot of green conservatives and a lot of conservatives who understand the value of
Oh,
of keeping the earth. Hang on, we got a little
well,
thing.
no, you can finish off on this.
But I was gonna say, we keeping our earth protected. That's a conservative value, and
Actually, somebody was saying like, oh, if you're a conservationist, that means you're like a Republican environmentalist, but if you're an environmentalist, that means you're like a Democrat.
Yes.
And there's all sorts of.
We're okay with using the term conservation, but once we say it, it's a branding thing. It's
It always is.
Dick Morris, that guy from polling who's like good at like changing the language and changing the names. It's a branding thing. When we say conservation, we feel like, oh, we're not left wing. And I think, again, protecting our earth is a conservative value. So I think that's one thing we agree on. So, but anyway, talk about this.
Happens too is there are things that pass a legislation. It may sound good, but sometimes there's special interests that are paying into it. And even people who may be conscious about being a conservationist or an environmentalist, the legislation is not designed for that purpose, right? A lot of times it's designed for profiteering reasons, et cetera, and so forth. So one of the things that we're trying to do is to help people focus on the environment. And we know that sometimes it's not the coolest thing to talk about. So I decided to make it the coolest thing that was happening at Florida the Blue this weekend. And so we did this thing. I'm going to show you the graphic here. So this is
be able to see this if you're
a little bit, right? If you're a little bit. So I'm showing you the graphic. So this is it says, "Talk to me about clean water. Find Muffin to ask why it's important to fight for water rights." And it's got a picture of a baby duck. So I have actually been babysitting, pet sitting ducks for my friend who's on vacation this summer, and her duck had babies. And this poor little fellow actually got left behind by mama. So we had to take him in and have been having to care for him. So we have this pet duck. And my friend and my friend Danica Fournier, who ran for state house against Spencer Roach in 2020. And she's got a farm. She knows all about animals, right? And so she's been helping me take care of this little fellow, help him get back on track. And we were both going to Leadership Blue this weekend. So we're like, what are we going to do with this duck? And she's like, I'm thinking of bringing it. I'm like, are you thinking of bringing a duck to the Democratic Convention? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, shit, yeah, we're going to do a whole thing on this. So we did. So I made graphics and messaging on it. We brought the duck with us throughout the whole convention.
All over Instagram. I was like scrolling through my Instagram page, all these different politicians holding your duck. And I'm just like, this is adorable. I'm sorry.
It is adorable. And everybody loved Muffin. It was so cute. And then we got to, we had some fun with it. It was like, okay, we got the people to hold it. We got Nikki Fried, we got Carlos Guillermo Smith, who's running for state senate. Like basically most of the major Democrats who were around when we had the duck, we got them to take a photo and, say that they give a duck about the environment. So that was our hashtag I give a duck. And it allowed us to have a conversation about water and environment and how impactful it can be. And it was just a lot of fun. And it was a pet duck and it was well taken care of. Everybody is fine. It's not like we swooped in a pond and took like a random duck. Like this was a pet duck. And he was totally fine.
Start staying as Republicans. They steal random ducks.
Okay, listen, I'm not even going to lie. There were Republicans that were trying to troll us because there was a picture that we took with Nikki Fried holding the duck. And they're like, oh, look, there's not enough people there. So they're trying to fill the ranks with ducks.
Oh, my God.
And I was like, dude, come on. Actually, all it did, and this is why I love Republican trolls. So come on. I was like, oh, great. So I was able to share all the additional graphics that we made demonstrating all the shitty laws that they passed against the environment. And I'm like, hey, is this you? Do you give a duck? I don't think you give a duck at all. So I had some fun with it throughout the whole weekend.
You engage quite a bit on social media. It's definitely something I've noticed about you. So I didn't see that, but that was pretty interesting. Again, I thought it was cute and definitely a good messaging tactic. But yeah, it looked like you guys had fun. And it makes sense that you chose Miami, seeing as we clobbered you there last election.
You did. You did. And listen, Democrats, no. Listen, I can talk about the inner politics and how that happened. We are, a message of unity was given, is inspirational. So that's why I'm all jazzed, by the way. So I literally just drove back from Miami, came here for this podcast, and because she drove straight from Miami to here. So I give her props for that. Well, yeah,
They
but,
haven't
yeah.
filmed that, so they're going to be heading straight home after this.
Yes. So let me tell you the big thing. I mean, the duck was a big thing.
Yes. Okay.
But the actual like newsworthy thing to come out of it, aside from Bradley Whitford, who was an actor and a West Wing
That's
star.
why you okay. Just see someone post support there. That is cool. Yeah,
Bradley Whitford was the keynote speaker, and he was great. Obviously, as a performer, he was able to talk about it. He had donated to my 2020 campaign, so I was already well acquainted with him and as a Democratic activist.
I'm a West Wing fan. I think it's one of the smarter shows on TV. I don't like Bradley Whitford's politics, but he was so good as Josh Lyman. He was one of the best characters on that show. Mm-hmm. So I can unlike a lot of people on both sides of the aisle, I can separate an individual's art from their politics.
Hey, I can love pre-2003 Kid Rock. Ba with the Baba, like that was cool shit. Like, but now
it's like, but you have like a lot of people, like both on the left and the right, who just won't watch actors or won't see movies. It's a lot harder for Republicans because it's like everything is woke, if you will. So,
oh my god,
again, you have to.
You mean everything's fucking cool and right?
Did you hear that Chick-fil-A now has a DEA advisor? It's horrible.
DEI
advisor. Yes, a DEI advisor. Yes, they also have drug enforcers as well.
I know that
I heard about that. A bunch of conservatives are apparently upset about that. I'm like, this is the most Christian, literally the most Christian.
Because guess what? Being anti-LGBT is actually not part of the Bible. Anyway, so the biggest thing to come out of FTP is this. So the Florida Democratic Party decided, as their first step towards not being a carcass on the side of the road, was to change their logo. Okay. And like, look, it's cool. And I will say the previous logo, although I love the blues, it was very passive.
Yeah, bland. It looks like an American flag, so it makes you
This is like it's bold font. And I have like a whole history on communications and data visualization. So this is a bold font. It's not flashy. This is the new one.
Yeah,
by the way. And it goes back to the traditional red, white, and blue, because the old logo was like blue and pastel blue, and it looked very Art Nouveau,
simplistic. Very simplistic.
But anyway, so like this is an interesting step. It wasn't something that we knew about actually until, maybe some insiders did, but they unveiled the logo at the event. So.
Yeah. So.
And we had a surprise drag show. I'm just saying.
Oh no!
Right after Nikki Fried.
Were there kids?
No, there's not fucking kids. It was the goddamn gala. It was $400 a plate. And if you have $400 a plate to give to your kid, you're not a Democrat. Sorry. Okay. This is true. Okay. So no, there was a surprise drag show at the end. It was and it came right after the there was this kind of spectacle thing that Nikki Fried did that was actually kind of like a little shot to her predecessors at the Florida Democratic Party, saying that because they turned the lights out as part of like, ooh, what's going on? And she goes, oh my God, I promise I paid the bills. And if you remember in the incoming, it was when Terry Rizzo came out and Manny Diaz came in. So it was right after the 2020 election. There was $1 million bill that was left unpaid for staff insurance. And so
there's a lot of mismanagement problems for Nikki Fried.
Yeah,
that really just this, and I honestly think that was a lot of the reason why we clobbered you, is just your party was so disorganized. And so I really hope Republicans are listening to this and understanding that
they're coming for you.
They are, yes. You guys are a threat. I mean, I think you guys are more of a threat. And the problem is when we minimalize it, when we think, oh, we're going to be fine, especially here in Southwest Florida.
No, y'all can just sit back on your laurels and shit. Just keep chilling. Like, you don't even need to fundraise. Fuck it.
See, definitely don't listen to her. But
no, it's cool. Like, you don't even need candidates. You guys already have like a super majority. You can leave tons of these seats on. Like, don't even bother. But so The thing about the drag show that was funny too is like, so we had drag performers and it was just like a really nice, a funny performance. And myself and Danica Fournier came up with our dollars, which is like a way to, celebrate and, help the performers. But we were the first ones to do it. So here's the thing. We were sitting in a room full of Democrats and 2 of us from Southwest Florida were the only ones who knew what to do with a drag show. So just in case you ever think that like, oh, Democrats, all we do is like go to drag parties and stuff. We don't. Only a few people do. And I actually
only apparently just you and Danica.
Just me and Danica. Yeah, no, listen, I've been an appreciator of drag for a long time. I actually won an award in 2017 where the part of my awards performance in Kentucky, in Lexington, Kentucky, when I was part of the leadership of the Community Development Society, I won New Professional of the Year. They had a drag show.
What place did you get?
It was new performer or new practitioner of the year. New practitioner of the year.
Practitioner of the year.
So because I was new in the field, newish. It was back in 2017.
In Kentucky.
Well, we always held our conference in different areas, but it was at University of Kentucky. So yeah, we had a whole on drag show. We actually at that time did an LGBT history tour through downtown Lexington as one of our community events.
Is there LGBT? What's the history there in Lexington?
Well, like many places, there were LGBT people around for a long, long time, and they were working. Yes, listen, guys, there's been gay people around for.
They only existed since the 90s.
No, they were only on TV since the 90s.
No. You mean Will and Grace weren't the first?
No, it was like Alice or whatever. No. So it was like there'd been a long history of it. Anyway, so we had a good old fashioned Democratic good time.
That's good. No, well, I'm happy for you. We're still gonna beat you next year, but
fingers crossed. Guys, don't even worry about it. Like you just don't got it in the bag. Just like I said, just chill. Like we're just over here having drag shows and ducks and bed.
Drag shows and ducks. They're nothing to worry about. Okay. I
was gonna say I want to say hi to Cindy. She was our audience guest last week. She's put some things in. She sees that the duck little muffin here was a hit. I think it was a hit too. It kind of came about because like literally we had to bring this duck to the thing, but
it was a good way to do it, and I agree with her. We need to get a muffin shirt. Probably sell that in our
yeah. So actually, my mother-in-law, who's nearly 80 years old, said that she would buy a "I Give a Duck" shirt. I think that's
me too. Honestly,
he's gonna okay.
Unless it if it doesn't donate to a Democratic campaign, so I don't have to violate the RPF loyalty.
Maybe we'll do it here through Piggy.
It goes. Yes, exactly. Small business. Yeah.
Oh, and while we're here, shout out to Chris Proya. Who gave me a ride home, but he's Senate candidate 33, and he's working actually to have a debate with Jonathan Martin, who's the current sitting state senator. But he participated in it, got his picture with Muffin, and it's part of our studio audience here today. We got a couple other folks. I'm not sure if they're enjoying the commentary.
Hello, they're here for the drinks. They're here for the drinks. And I will say, I'm very glad that Jonathan is going to be debating Chris, and I might actually be moderating that debate. We'll see, but I think it's very important because a lot of people would advise, the state senate, state rep candidates to not debate, and Jonathan is not listening to that advice. And Cindy says hi. By the way,
Cindy Schrader.
Cindy. He says hi back, Cindy.
So I was going to say one thing is that, and this is a common strategy, especially in places like this where there's one party that's dominant. They don't actually always necessarily have to show up. They do not have to make appearances. They don't have to say anything just because the numbers are in their favor so heavily. And unfortunately, this is a bad thing for people because you don't really get to know the candidates. You never get to hear what their ideas are. And, even in the 2019 or the 2020 primary of the Republicans, some of the leading Republicans never came to any debates. Like Casey Asgar. Yeah,
I was about to say there was one Republican, Casey Asgar, who was basically attacking the eventual winner, Byron Donalds. All the time, would never show up to a debate. Never showed up anywhere. I had no idea who this guy was except for his advertisements, and only his advertisements on his against Byron Donalds. It was like, why won't you show up? Why do you really want this job, or are you just here to attack? So I don't think he was actually
the best funded candidate in that race.
because
and
it was
that's what
because it was
happened.
all his money. It was his own.
It was
money.
his money. He
was Kurt Clausening it, you know.
Okay, but that's the whole thing. So we actually have a long history here in Southwest Florida of candidates popping up, paying their way. They never, sometimes they haven't lived here that long. I mean, Dan Bongino ran here as a total carpetbagger, right? We might have Madison Cawthorn here as another carpetbagger just showing up because it's opportune, right?
Paige Kriegel as well. He was representing Charlotte County, ran twice for Congress.
Yeah.
Basically moved to Estero. Because I guess he had a second house in Estero.
You actually don't even have to live in the district according to federal law. But but yeah, so it's we have a long history of it, and people just they buy their races.
Well, Republicans have a long history of carpetbagger. We are the inventors of carpetbagging, going back to the 1860s.
But here's the thing, like that's bad for people in your district. Like for me, like. And I've, believe it or not, I'm not just straight a partisan hat, guys. I've worked for Democrats. I've worked for Republicans. I really go back to the people. We want to elect people in all positions of government that are ready to serve the people, right? And there should be a level of accountability to people on this, I believe, right? And I love the debate. I love the opportunity to talk about ideas because it's my passion and has been my passion for a long time. And I want to see that come back. I would rather see folks who are, willing to talk about the issues than folks who are just trying to buy their way into a race.
Yeah. And the other thing is, because I'm against carpetbaggers because you want someone who knows your community. It's a representative. They're supposed to represent the community. So you want someone who, if they don't have roots here, have a time of residency here. And we don't get that quite a bit. We get a lot of people who, because Southwest Florida is a place where people retire. Yeah. So we get people. Most recently, we had Dan Severson. He was the Minnesota House Republican leader. Like he was a state representative in Minnesota, moved here about 5-6 years ago, ran for Congress. And then
ran for school board.
Lost both of them. Lost to a Democrat the second time. That should have been humbling for sure. But
he should humble and enjoy his retirement. But
anyway. Yeah, I mean,
listen, I have a whole thing against sunsetters. I'm not going to lie, because there's a ton of people who come down here in all sorts of professions. Yeah. They retire from somewhere else and then they come here and they sit in jobs. They have outdated skills and they're literally like taking job markets away from people who still have active families like me. Yeah. Right? So it's like people can't move up. We're kind of hollowed out the middle of our economy because there's a lot of folks. And like on paper, you go, oh, well, this guy's got 20 years experience, but this person's got 10. Well, let's take this 20-year experience. Yeah. But they got 20 years because they retired from somewhere else. And what this ultimately comes, and this is not just like ageism, this is about your level of motivation and how committed you are to a community. Yeah. So if you're just moving here because you want something that's easy in retirement, that's not going to set you up to be an achiever and be somebody who's ready to work for the community. Yeah.
You're just using it as like a post-retirement last gig,
So thank you. I see John Heim, who's a big water advocate. Appreciate you watching. And always fighting. John, if you didn't see, I give a duck about water. Go check out About Muffin. So let's talk about some of the other issues that you wanted to get into here.
So, I mean, we're running low. We're running low on time. So I'll skip the cocaine gate that's been going on in the White House. I really don't think it's a
fuck. Everybody in DC does cocaine. The only person that ever got caught was Trey Riddell.
I did want to put here that we have an update here locally. We were talking, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, about Sheriff Marcino and the 10-year-old who he perp walked. So a judge has found him guilty of making threats. A few things that are interesting for me in this story. One is that it was a judge and not a jury. Now, I'm sure there's a reason for that that's legal and judicial, but I just found that interesting and it rubs me the wrong way. Second, what I'm concerned about is this is going to bolster Sheriff Marcino. He's going to say, oh, I wasn't right. He was making a threat. I still do not believe it was a threat. It appears to me as a meme. What was interesting is also the judge said that the kid was coached. The kid is 10. Of course he was coached. Attorneys meet with their clients and help them through these type of cases all the time. And of course, they're going to help a 10-year-old who doesn't know what's going on. So for people who don't know, and when I was 18, I was arrested and I had spent about 2 months in jail. And I'm, as you know, autistic, and I had no idea what was going on. We have a lot of people coming in, but anyway, I had no idea what was going on. And so my first time in a courtroom, I thought my mom was going to be there. She wasn't. And I was like looking around, and the judge was like snapping at me, trying to get me to pay attention to him. I had no idea what was going on. I can't imagine it would be any easier for a 10-year-old. So I have questions and concerns about the judgment. I don't know if you've read about this.
This case, what had happened, and is almost a year ago, I think, at this point, but there was a 10-year-old boy who had shared some what appeared to be memes that somehow conveyed a potential threat to shoot up a school. And then Sheriff Carmine Marcino and his team went into the school and perp walked the student, arrested the 10-year-old, and then videotaped it and shared it out. So
police porn.
Yeah, police porn stuff. And this is a big thing for Carmine Marcino. He uses self-promotion. He's got TikTok. It's disgusting for me.
Yeah. And by the way, I do want to mention this too. And I won't mention names, but there are a lot of MAGA Republicans who are upset about it too, because you have to understand it from our perspective, from a MAGA perspective. They're very pro-family, and this comes out like, why are you perp walking a kid? It's a kid. It does not look good to a lot of strong, not like moderate, milk toast establishment Republicans. I'm talking Trump loving, make America great again, flag waving, gun toting, strong conservative Republicans. They are not happy with this because it does not look good.
Well, good. Well, hopefully they'll start looking more into what Carmine Marcino is doing then, because and apparently this boy was autistic, or is autistic as
is he? That's even worse.
From what I understand.
I'm now even more pissed. This is personal.
Yeah. So, and there's a whole component around this is, first of all, I will say right out the bat, I do not ever want to see the photo of a minor, whether they've been arrested or what have you, anywhere. Okay. That is, for me, not appropriate. Okay. Second, arresting children in general is not something I think that we should be doing.
It creates and this is like when they're that age, they're still psychologically developing. Right. This is going to damage him for decades into his adulthood in ways that we don't even realize. And I 100% agree with Howard Sapp. He is a bully.
Yeah. And so those are two things right there. Third, let's talk about putting their photo out on social media and media news. Okay. Like their name, their photo being put out like that is wholly inappropriate. Also, let's talk about jurisprudence and the whole concept of being innocent until proven guilty, which is part of our legal foundation in this country. And now you've publicly named and shamed somebody who hasn't been convicted of anything, and that person is a minor. So these are major problems for me. I think it's inappropriate. Now, going back to the verdict that you were talking about this young man being found guilty, I have some qualms too about it being a judge versus a jury, and that may be something to do with him being a minor. But I will actually at this point say, okay, I defer, and he made a threat, but what do we do in our legal system when we have this type of situation? We have a juvenile who's done something, and what is the level of severity and what is the intent? Okay. Was the intention for him to try to shoot up the school, or was he just acting out, or he just did something stupid? And, this is also like, did he have access to weapons? Was he actually trying to do this? So I don't buy the whole idea that the schools are safer because of this type of behavior. And I worry really about what the broad scope effect of this, of perp walking this child, putting his name out there, and then convicting him. And I'll leave the rest to the judicial system, because we'll talk about that another day, because this also is a young man of color as well. So we can talk about how that plays in to the conviction. But I don't like any of it. I do not think it's appropriate. I think that these types of things, there can be a better way than creating so early on in a child's life the education to prison pipeline.
Yeah, it was definitely very concerning. Is one of the things we do agree with, but I wanted to get that update out there as well. So that was the two main stories I really wanted to talk about. I mean, Hunter Biden is not really that big of an issue, but we did say we were going to talk about the legislative session.
All right.
And any bills you want to talk about in particular?
You threw it to me first. All right.
Ladies first.
So
yes.
listen, so there's, okay, like all the way together, from the Democratic perspective, this was a complete abysmal piece of shit Florida legislative session. We have everything from the immigration bill to the attack on trans rights and the hormone and the doctors and the abortion, the guns. I mean, on and on and on. Okay, but everybody's talking a lot about that. But I'm actually going to rep my friends at the Florida Democratic Environmental Caucus, because one of the things that I think is kind of like a sleeper that came through.
I wonder if I think I know which one you're talking about.
Well, there's a couple of them, but
is it the road one?
The radioactive roads.
This one I don't know too much about, but it does, to me, it sounds concerning. Which yes. Okay.
Right, so
can you explain this, because
Absolutely.
I don't understand this at all? So please do.
So it's HB 1191, the use of phosphogypsum bill. Okay, the use of phosphogypsum is a byproduct of the mining of phosphate and the processing of phosphate as a fertilizer. Okay. Mosaic is the biggest company in the state of Florida who engages in this practice. So after they process and mine the phosphate from the ground and they get it ready to be fertilizer, there's this byproduct called phosphogypsum that is radioactive. So currently these radioactive stacks, they're called, gypsum stacks, are put in various places across the state, in kind of like ponds areas. If you remember, a couple years ago, there was a leak in one of these ponds in a place called Piney Point near Sarasota. That meant that the contaminated water from the radioactive waste in the gypsum stacks was potentially leaking out of the reservoir and into the water supply around us. These gypsum stacks stay radioactive, and they have a half-life of 1,200 years, and then they actually decay into something that is also radioactive that has another half-life of about 900 years, right? So we're talking about thousands of years of radioactive waste that comes from the phosphorus mining or the phosphate mining industry that is, like John Heim is pointing out, from the Fortune 500 company Mosaic. According to the EPA, Mosaic is on the hook to get rid of this radioactive waste. Okay. Right now they're sitting in these phosphate stacks, but these are Superfund sites and they're supposed to be taken care of, and they are at the cost of the company. So what happened in the use of phosphogypsum bill is that it allows for the use of this phosphogypsum in roads. However, phosphogypsum, aside from being radioactive, is known to cause cancer and illness in both people and animals, as well as potentially can ruin the environment. Particularly concerning for roads is that if it's used in roads, it will have runoff. So every time something rains on the road, it will then run off, gathering that radioactive material and the harm essentially that is embedded in the roads. So the bill is what's called a test. So they have agreed to make it legal to test the use of phosphogypsum in roads across the state of Florida. Essentially, it's a door opening for the company to sell this radioactive material to companies doing construction in roads across the state of Florida. And so this is terrible, as you can imagine. And all that's going to happen is they're going to do the test. They're going to say, hey, everything's fine, because radioactive stuff, especially when it's not like, it's very different than like if you walk into Chernobyl, right? Like Chernobyl's like, shh, and you're going to get cancer or skin lesions or something relatively soon. Most other types of radioactive materials accumulate in your system over time, and they cause problems in the long term, right? So there's very little chance that in a short-term study, you're going to be able to get enough data to determine whether or not this is a good or bad thing, okay? In fact, this has been used before in Ukraine, where Chernobyl is, by the way, okay? And it was so detrimental to the communities that it was stopped, and all the roads that use phosphogypsum were ripped up from Ukraine, okay? So this has been tried. It's a bad idea. It is going to cause cancer and illness and leukemia and all sorts of other horrible things. And not only is it going to be confined to the roads, but the runoff from that material has a possibility to become part of the water system in the state of Florida for thousands of years to come. Okay. So that's why this is like a big deal to me.
Yeah,
And it really
it
slipped
is.
in. It was one of the things because everybody's so worried about all this other shit that is
They
existential.
they thought the industries that benefit from it thought they can sneak it in, which they did. And it's something I agree with you on. You talk about, and there's so many Republicans who are concerned about the government and the things that they do, like the conspiracy theories type stuff. They're fluoride in the water, or they're tracking us with, killing us with the COVID vaccine. This is a real life conspiracy. This is like the type they're poisoning our roads, which is going to get into our water, which is going to cause us cancer. It's like I'm just shocked. Now, what I want to know though is what's the next steps? Like, is there like going to be a lawsuit? Is there what action can be taken to move forward?
So as of right now, I don't know anything. I know that as part of the environmental caucus, we had a veto campaign. So we were trying to encourage Ron DeSantis to veto it. That didn't go anywhere. It was signed into law the last week. It was one of the very last laws that was signed by Ron DeSantis right ahead of the July 1st cutoff. And it's like it's a backdoor. And this is, I think, actually what we worry about in general, on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
This is special interest, right? Paying off, literally writing legislation to benefit them.
Yeah.
And then sliding it in and making it seem like it's okay, because what everybody who's been supporting this bill is like, oh, it's a test. It's a test. But a test, I mean, it's a test with radioactive waste, first of all. Like, let's just say, and my question to everybody at this point too is like, if it's not a big deal, like, let's pave your driveway with it first. Yeah. Let's pave the road in front of your kid's school with it first. And then we'll see how much of a big deal a test really is.
Now, can communities like city councils, county commissions, can they do anything, or is this like?
I don't know if any preemptions are going to be in place right now, and honestly, it's a battle to come. So because it's a test, it's like baby time, and they could say, "Oh, we're going to do it slowly," and then they'll slide in the next thing next time around. I mean, the only thing is left essentially is for people to say, hey, let's fight back against this. Let's actually ban it from use. It's going to take a campaign against it because it's a company. It's a company with a large amount of money and a big amount of payoffs to many, not payoffs, let me say contributions to many folks, including some on the left. Okay. And they'll just chip it away until they can do it. But the thing that's crazy about this, and I don't think I mentioned it earlier, is that not only is it like, okay, we're going to use this in the roads, but it eliminates their debt, because they would otherwise have to dispose of this material. So it actually turns a debt into a profit because they can sell it and get government contracts to build the roads. So, it is actually classic rent seeing. I'll use libertarian parlance for you. It's classic rent seeing. It's a big special interest company that has bought off politicians to do what they want. And then they're ultimately, and not just to make it more disgusting, they're going to get it paid off with public dollars.
So basically our taxpayer money is being used to give us cancer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's because roads are public, right?
Yep.
Whether they're county, state, or federal. So those dollars are going to be then going back to buy the radioactive waste from Mosaic to put into our communities. So it's so disgusting. It's something that I think we could universally get behind.
I actually agree. I think that you can get a lot of Republicans if there is a protest. I would definitely be there for that, because I 100% agree. Our government shouldn't be poisoning us. That shouldn't be a controversial statement, and it definitely shouldn't be one that we're saying in the United States of America.
Right.
But unfortunately, we have to be out there and fight against our government literally poisoning us. So it's kind of absurd and ridiculous that this passed. So this is one I definitely agree with you. It was another of the conservative years. The one that's been actually pretty interesting down here has been the permitless carry bill. There's some controversy around it because there's Republicans out here in Lee County who think we didn't do enough. And look, I'm a big supporter of constitutional carry as well. This isn't that. Permitless carry, I think, is a good first step. I know you disagree with me on this, of course, but it is, again, when it comes to the Second Amendment, the Constitution to me is what gives the permit to own a weapon. I understand the real issues that come with that, with a very armed citizenry. Obviously, there's going to be issues with this when it comes to public safety, but again, I'm a libertarian for that reason. I always err on the side of rights and liberties, but it's just been very interesting to see the Republican pushback on our own legislators for not going far enough, because they can't. Yeah, it's like they let the perfect be the enemy of the good, as the saying goes, and it's just ridiculous. And
so wait, I want to stop.
Yeah,
what's the perfect?
Well, the perfect in this case would have been constitutional carry. That's what full constitutional carry.
Tell me what you mean by this. So
this would mean that you don't need
give me the ideal vision.
So
what's the perfect scenario?
The perfect scenario would be that you do not need to get a gun permit in order to own a gun.
Of any kind.
Of any kind.
And you can take it anywhere.
Correct.
And you can hold it at any kind.
Correct.
So no age.
Yes, correct.
No capacity, capability restrictions.
Correct.
So, and no place restrictions.
Yes, very radical.
My kindergartner can take a gun to school on the first day.
No, she couldn't. Well, no, hang on.
That's not constitutional carry, because you just said no age, no place restrictions.
Oh, I did say no place restrictions.
AK-47.
Well, as long as she.
Sorry, AR-15. Okay, AK-47.
It's definitely, look, I get.
In order to just roll around. How about people on the no-fly list? How about that? We'll just give them all.
Well, the no-fly list is with the no-fly list.
Organization that gave guns to people on the no-fly list.
Well, that would be
with your constitutional carry.
It would be illegal. It would be unwise, but it would be legal. Look, and I get it. Constitutional carry is a very radical position. That's why it doesn't get passed.
Well, fuck yeah, man.
And look, and that's the honest truth of it. And that's what, a lot of these Republicans don't get. We get what we can get. A convicted murderer cannot have a gun. Yes, no.
Have gone in prisons?
No. So this is
so
here's the thing with
this is constitutional carry.
Constitutional
no age
right.
limit. You said no age limit, no restrictions. So all the prisoners get guns.
No, actually, so there is a limit when yes.
So
there is a limit when you are convicted a convicted criminal. So the thing is, your constitutional rights can be restricted, but only via due process of the law through a criminal conviction. This is why, I know you probably heard this about slavery being still technically legal, because if you're a convict, you can be considered a slave under the 14th Amendment. That is the only way you can. So.
Right, but that's already in the Constitution. So your interpretation would be, and like I said, your utopian view, no limit.
Well, I would actually
no
go, this is the,
and I just proved that that's bullshit, because you said no in prisons and no kindergartners. So that's what I'm saying. You, even in the fucking utopian vision of the fucking gun world gone wild, there's restrictions. So you've already violated your cause. This is why I said it's horseshit. The whole thing is horseshit, because we always have restrictions, and we always have restrictions on our rights in this country in terms of the constitutional amendments, particular our individual rights and the Bill of Rights, because there are fucking limitations to when it makes sense to do this, right? You can't run into a fucking theater and yell fire and call it the fucking First Amendment. You can't drive a car on the left side of the road at fucking 80 miles an hour, right? You can't fucking do that, because it's fucking against the other right of people to pursue their life and happiness. And the thing is that we got to get out of this absolutist terms, because life is not black and white. There are limitations, and we're limited all the fucking time, and our life is fucking great. It's better for it. It's better because we have the capacity to do the things that we want, right? I can't just come into this bar, this Ollie's, with no shirt on, no underwear on, no shoes on, fucking two guns blazing, and just be like, America, and be like, my freedom, because there's a lot of fucking problems that people would have with that, right? So I just don't understand why it's okay for Republicans to espouse this absolutist vision of the Constitution, and then in a fucking second, just like you did, my friend, roll back and say, oh, but wait.
So yes, okay, I will concede the point there, and the fact that there are certain limitations. But again. Here.
Just the limitations that you like.
Just the limitations.
I don't want to get
limited. I like what John Heim says. Limited limits. Yes, limited limits. Limit the amount of limitations. I actually
fucking horseshit, and you got fucking caught in it. You got your dick caught in the screen. You're fucking done. Because like the thing is like when it comes down to it, here's the thing, and I'm gonna be 100% honest right now. This vision of a country where everybody has a gun, and it's the Wild West, is literally not one that we want to live in. And I know that most of the people in this country have never lived in that.
I have an Uber coming, actually.
Wait, hold on a second. Let me finish this. So I have spent a significant amount of time in the Philippines.
Mm.
The Philippines has extremely liberal gun laws. Okay. And what this means is that everybody has their own army, right? If you're a powerful person, I was working with mayors, they have their own entourage. They oftentimes control the police. They have one of the highest rates of gun homicide in the world. And I know more people that died from gun violence in the Philippines than anywhere else. I went to funerals from families shooting each other over land. I sat in a place in the mayor's home in the middle central part of the Philippines where every single person at that table had a fully automatic weapon. Okay. And we do not actually want that. You really fucking don't, because not only are we already there in part, gun deaths are the leading cause of death for children in this country, which is fucking horrific. And on top of that, you don't want to add more fuel to the fire.
Yes. Okay. So I hate to do this.
Don't.
I actually have an Uber that's outside for me.
Sean is totally not running away because I fucking kicked his ass on this guy.
No, I know. Yes, I do have an Uber. I called it maybe a bit too early. Look, I do want to say.
So he's, so Sean is going to rethink his vision of the utopian 2A world.
Yeah.
And but
we'll be back. I will say,
be with the permitless carry.
I'm going to let you end this.
There's enough limits.
I'm going to let you end this so I don't have to lose this guy.
All right, go get your Uber and we'll call it a night. Thank you so much, Sean. Been a good sport.
Let them know about July. Yes.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So thank you so much for joining us here for a Democrat and a Republican Walk into a Bar. We hope that you will sponsor our episode and get a subscription for $4.99 a month or $49.99 a year. Or you can get all of our shows here at Big Mouth Media for $19.99 a month or $199 a year. It's a great deal and you would absolutely help us. We need all sorts of equipment to keep alive. Got to produce these shows, got our software, our equipment. So we'd love to have your support. One thing that Sean wanted to mention here is that we are all busy this summer and we're going to take a brief summer vacation here over the next few weeks, and we're going to start up again in August. So we will see you next time here in the beginning of August from Big Mouth Media on A Democrat and a Republican Walk into a Bar. And we'll see you next time. Check our website, www.bigmouthmediafl.com. Bye-bye.